Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadrang Yajatra Sthirairangai Stushtvagumsastanubihi Vyashema Devahitanyadayuhu Swastina Indra Vruddhashavaha Swastina Pusha Vishwabedha Swastina Starksho Arishtanemihi Swastina Brahaspatir Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vanshurshibhyo Mahatbhyo Namo Gurubhyah Sarvopaplavarahitah Prajnanaganah Pratyagartho Brahmaivahamasmi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shrutisrananam alayam karunalayam namami bhagavatpadam shankaram lokashankaram. Putra bhashya kritau vande bhagavantau punah punah Ishvaro gururatmeti murti bheda vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta dehaya dakshinamurtaye namaha Ajnanatimirandhasya jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Oh. Mantra number 9. Eshanuratma chetasa veditavyah Eshonuratma chetasa veditavyah Yasmin pranah panchadha samvivesha Yas samvivesha sarvamotam prajanam Pranaishchittam sarvamotam prajanam Yasmin vishuddhe vibhavatyesha atma Yasmin vishuddhe vibhavatyesha atma. Again, Eshonuratma chetasa veditavyah Yasmin pranah panchadha samviveshah Eshonuratma chetasa veditavyah Yasmin pranah panchadha samvivesha Pranaishchittam sarvamotam prajanam Yasmin devati Pranaishchittam sarvotam prajanam Yasmin vishuddhe vibhavatyesha atma. Last time we have seen this, but I wish that we may see it again. It's a very important mantra in a sense. We have to have a clarity about certain things. There are a lot of confusion about the self-knowledge. And one of the most common confusion is listening is just an intellectual knowledge. And you have to meditate and then realize the Atma. Because just by listening, they say you don't feel that you are consciousness. You don't feel you are Ananda. So to feel that, you have to meditate and realize the self. You see, when one listens from a competent teacher and has some subtlety, or you can say sharpness of the buddhi, there is some clarity about the self. But for the knowledge to take place as though, the right word is to own up this knowledge. To own up this knowledge, we have to remove certain inhibiting factors. And so-called realization for them, what they say, or to digest, as they say, right? It is, in a way, you can use the, but then this another thing is inhibiting factors are there which has to be removed consciously, not simply by meditating. Our daily experiences, past experiences of pleasure and pain, our own value structure, our goals, our ideals, they seem to inhibit which is gained. Clarity is there, but the clarity gets inhibited because of certain habitual error or very, very strong values, or you can say very, very strong past experiences of pleasure, pain, which we can refer to as samskaras, or we can call it as vasanas, if you understand properly. They inhibit the knowledge, technically called as due to viparita bhavana, because of certain habitual errors. Habitually taking the world to be source of joy and happiness, habitually seeking the external infrastructure only and only in certain way because of strong likes and dislikes. This has to be done like that. This has to be done like that. Some of these women I know have obsession that they have to clean the clothes in the morning. All the clothes should be dumped into washing machine in the morning only. And that too at that time. And then now is summer, we should not waste time. So please get up early and give me your clothes and take bath. That fellow says, let me wake up at my, let me do my way. No, 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 we have to wash the clothes. If my clothes for box or a basket, but no, 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 we have to clear it. You please accommodate. I have to manage the home. It's an obsession thing. But so much of fixation. Some people are so fastidious surrounding themselves, certain system surrounding themselves.
The network is poor, not coming. The video is freezing. You have to change.
I'll change. All these things inhibits your knowledge. What happens that momentarily the thing gets lost. It's not available to you. Momentarily, that knowledge is as though gets covered, and the person's behavior may be the wisdom that he or she has gained from a competent teacher. It is called nididhyasana. Okay, it may be different from what he has come to know from about the self from a teacher. So the nididhyasanam is required to eliminate what we call it viparita bhavana. It includes all these values about external, how the thing should be in the external world, about my comfort zone, etc. All kinds of things. and Dehatma Buddhi also, the sense of I-ness in the body. And another confusion is, they say, because you cannot reach the self by words and the mind. It is beyond words and the minds. You know, tatra na vag gacchati, na chakshur, na mano, na vidma, na vijani. So, it is beyond mind. Okay? And so when you say beyond mind, that means then the step comes, you have to meditate. Since it is beyond mind, meditate and realize. To clear these two confusions, Shruti says, Eshaha Anu Atma. This Atma is Anu. Anu means very subtle. It's very subtle. Okay. And then Chetasa Veditavyaha. It has to be known through mind only. The self, it is to be known through mind. Self is, though not an object like a pot or a pen, etc., to be recognized as an object. It is the very content of everything, including the subject. Still, it Shruti says it has to be known only through mind. The same Shruti which says it is beyond mind, and the same Shruti now tells that it has to be known through the mind. Please understand why. This is where the Lakshyartha is to be understood. This is where, when the contradiction is mentioned in the Shruti, and you think it is self-contradictory, therefore Shruti is not clear, and these Western scholars said there is a blubbering of the Rishis. No, it is not so. It is beyond speech and mind. It doesn't mean it is to be meditated and realized, because the Chetasa eva vedita. You have to know it through mind only. You have to know it through the proper means of knowledge only. So, we have to understand the context. This is where the job of a teacher comes in, or I would say this is where our tradition plays an important role. When you study from a traditional master, the so-called apparent confusion gets resolved. In the Mahavakya also, Tattvamasi, you are that. There is an apparent confusion, a contradiction. And you can say it's a vivid contradiction. But in spite of that, even if there is a contradiction, statement is true. It was told by Shruti, told by Rishi. I need to understand in a proper context. In a proper context, I need to know the sentence. I need to study from a teacher so that apparent contradiction stands resolved. So also here, there is an apparent contradiction by which you see that one mantra says you cannot know it through mind. Another mantra says you have to know it through mind only. How? Mind only. Okay. See, how does the knowledge take place? The prakriya, the methodology of the knowledge. Last time I had discussed in little detail, but not much detail. Whenever a given sense organ comes in contact with corresponding sense objects, means a given sense object is within the range of corresponding sense organs. I see only name and form. So certain names and forms are within the capacities of the eyes to see them. You hear the sound through ears. certain objects or certain sounds are within the capacity, the range of the ears to hear. And at that object and that it is backed by the mind. There may be within the range of a capacity of a sense organ, and it may be within the range and it may come in contact also. Eyes may see the form, ears might hear the sound, but then it has to be backed by the mind. Mind has to be behind the given sense organ when it comes in contact with a corresponding sense object, respective sense objects. Eyes coming in contact with the forms and colors, ears coming in contact with the sound, nose coming in contact with smell, etc. When that means mind has to be behind the sense organ. Then how does the knowledge takes place? Then a relevant thought form takes place in your mind. Mind assumes a relevant thought form. When I say form, don't imagine the form. Thought form means of a color and shape. If it is a sound, then there is a thought form, sound form. Mind assumes. If it is a smell, mind assumes a particular thought form of a smell. Technically called as Vishayakara Vritti. Okay? This is called Vishayakara. Object thought form takes place. Though it looks like with eyes I see the objects around. But actually what happened, there is a thought form that has taken place in the mind called Vritti. And that particular Vritti you happen to see. And then you say, yeah, this is such and such a thing. Yeah, you said so. This is particular smell. This is particular taste. This is what I touch. With a closed eye also, if you touch a glass, you make it up. There is a glass here. With a closed eye, you touch a piece of cloth, fabric, you make it out. It looks like some fabric I'm touching. So, corresponding thought form taking place, when the mind is behind that given thought and that form assuming, and you are seeing only that thought. And then you say, this is this. That is why you don't see the object outside. You see here a particular thought form. That is why this confusion, standard confusion happens. Someone sees a rope at the same place, same time, to the same object. Some other fellow says it is not a rope, but it is snake. Okay? The snake perception is there because somehow the thought form, that vritti, is of the shape of a form of a snake. And this person says, I see snake, and there is a seer inside. The thought form corresponding to an object is called Vishayakara Vrittihi or Idam Vrittihi. And the one who sees that thought form and says that the knowledge that takes place, that vritti is called Aham Vritti. So Idam Vritti and Aham Vritti. Okay? The first operation is Vishaya Vritti taking place when the competent sense organs perceives its own corresponding sense object. That is called Idam Vritti. And second operation is there is inside who sees and recognizes and says that I know this. Oh, what you say, I can understand. I heard you. And then respond. Somebody shouts my name. then that a vritti takes place of that my name is shouted. Somebody is calling this particular name person. I happen to be that name person. Then I look around. That response then starts because the knowledge has taken place. I have seen as though I have heard that sound or about calling my name. That is called aham vritti recognition. Then the whole operation of knowledge is complete. Technically called as vritti vyapti and phala vyapti. First level of operation is called vritti vyapti and phala vyapti. There is a seer who sees and says, this is what it is. Oh, somebody is calling me. Let me look back. Let me look back is the third stage. But second stage is someone is calling me. That is called phala vyapti. This twofold operation, this two-step operation is involved in any empirical knowledge, including dream objects, waking objects. A two-step operation is there. Now, that means there is aham, the subject, the mind that sees the vritti. Which vritti? Vritti vyapti, and there is a phala vyapti, aham. When it is said you cannot know through mind, it is beyond mind as though the word is used. It means in case of self-knowledge, there is no second operation. There is no phala vyapti. And then there is nobody claims the knowledge taking place. Oh, I see, this is spot. There is a knower, and the knower, that aham vritti is a knower who knows that this is spot, and there is an object called pot outside. Phala vyapti. That doesn't take place in all the three. Gnata, Gnanam, and Gneyam. Vritti vyapti, phala vyapti, and parinama, knowledge. All of them stand resolved. And that is why it is said, you have to know through mind only. Because there is no knowledge that can take place without the mind. So also, in case of self-knowledge, you certainly need a mind. That vritti has to take place, and that when the vritti vyapti takes place, as though it is the vastu that is revealed, is self-revealing, self-existing, self-shining consciousness. So there is no phala vyapti, and there is no knowledge that takes place, and that unknownness stands resolved. The knower, known, and the knowledge gets resolved. Okay? And then you own up that knowledge by nididhyasana. Okay? That one consciousness, non-dual consciousness, is recognized as the subject, as the object, and as the connection between subject-object in terms of knowledge. And that's all that takes place. Okay? And that, since this division doesn't exist, since division stands resolved, division of seer, seen, and seeing, the knowledge, Gneya, Gnata, and Gnanam, that particular thought form or that particular resolution is called akhandakara vritti. Khanda means divisions. Akhandakara vritti means there is no division. In case of self-knowledge, there is vritti vyapti, natu phala vyapti. that Phalavyapti is that drashta gets resolved, the seer gets resolved into seeing. The knower gets resolved into the known and the knowledge. How? Look here. A typical example of you are the 10th man, you are the 10th one. That so far the child was looking for the 10th man, had concluded that I am not the 10th, I am 9th one, suppose. Some conclusion is at least that much is that I am not the 10th. That fellow who thinks I am not the 10th, when the teacher builds up a context, asked others to stand in line, and this fellow asked this guy to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then told, you are the 10th man. The seeker of the 10th gets resolved into the sought that is the 10th. Oh, I am the 10th. The 10th is here. 10th is me. That vritti takes place. So the one who was searching the 10th man gets resolved, and therefore there is no division of seer and seen, and that akhandakara vritti has to take place. That thought form is called akhandakara vritti. Khanda means divisionless thought form. That gives the knowledge that I am 10th man. And that being a vritti has to take place in a mind. You cannot know it without mind. Self cannot be known without the mind. And when it is said it is not known through the mind, that means it, again I repeat, Phalavyapti is not there. There is nobody aham to objectify Atma, to see Atma. Like I see ghata, I see a pot in my mind when I see a pot. When I see this particular green pen, this marker pen, then there is a highlighter pen, then these two vrittis come. One holistic vritti comes into my thought form. What is it? It's a highlighter, green color. You recognize it. And I see that thought form is seen by aham. Similarly, this is Atma, and I see Atma. It doesn't take place. The seer gets resolved into that scene, because that Atma, that which is seen, is self-shining, self-revealing consciousness. Since Atma is that, it doesn't require any kind of seeing. Phalavyapti nasti. Therefore, it is said that it is beyond mind. Understand? Beyond mind means what? Phalavyapti is not there. That's all. But beyond mind doesn't mean you don't require mind. Okay? That vritti, first what happens? The words that the teacher uses, the context that the teacher builds up, is to reveal that you are not limited, you are limitless. The Purnatva is revealed, It reveals the identity between the seer and the seen, Jiva and Ishvara. How they reveal? There is a process. First it is told, everything is Ishvara. So then, everything is non-separate from Ishvara, and then including yourself. And that particular vritti, which recognizes, including me is non-separate from Ishvara, aham purna, chit swarupoham, chidananda rupaha, aham asmi. That vritti removes the self-ignorance and itself gets removed It doesn't hang on in the mind, it goes away. And there is nobody to objectify that idam vritti, purna vritti. The so-called objectifier, that aham, also gets resolved into that vritti. And having vritti having gone away, there is nothing. It's awareness of myself being whole, purna. Therefore, it is called akhandakara vritti. Okay? All this, as I said, twofold operation. The first level operation generally in all empirical knowledge is vritti vyapti, which is important for the knower, because knower has to see that thought form and say, I know this. That is no more important, because knower itself gets resolved into that is known, that is aham brahmasmi. Like the ninth one gets resolved into, okay? And there is nothing but what? In the wake of the knowledge, since it gets resolved, we say it is beyond mind. Okay? That knower who sees and claims that I know, it gets resolved, and therefore we say it is beyond mind. Okay? Thus, when we say it is beyond mind, what we say, it is not an object thought. When I say I see a pot, it is an object thought. There is a seer and see. Whereas in case of Atmajnanam, there is no object thought that takes place, and you say that I am seeing. As we said, the knower is also a status, which is also a vritti that belongs to mind. And that knower, that phala vyapti is not necessary, because knower gets resolved when this knowledge takes place. That's why it is called purnakara vritti or akhandakara vritti. The knower is resolved. Therefore, they say mind is not necessary, or you can say it is beyond mind. But please understand one thing, the Shruti very clearly says that is chetasa veditavya. It is to be known through mind, because it's a matter of self-knowledge. The knowledge is necessary because there is a problem of self-ignorance. And self-ignorance or any kind of ignorance can be eliminated only and only through knowledge. There is no other means. Like darkness can go only by light. Even like a cave which is discovered, some 5,000-10,000 years old cave is discovered. It has been dark all these years and it is pitch dark inside the cave. But that darkness can go simply by a matchstick. No amount of ammunition or water can remove the darkness. I mean, you may water flow, or you may blow the wind, or you may use the weapons to cut the darkness. It will not go. Andhakara virodhi. What is opposed to darkness is light. So also Ajnana virodhi is knowledge. Knowledge is necessary. Knowledge can take place only and only in the mind, so the mind is necessary. Understand these two sentences. It is beyond mind, and at the same time mind is necessary. And further, no knowledge can take place without adequate and proper means of knowledge. Pramana Vyapara is necessary for knowledge to take place. If I want to see the form, if I want to know the color, there is no other way except operation of the eyes. I have to operate the eyes, and they should be adequate enough to see the color or the form. And no other means of knowledge can give me that knowledge, and no other way I can do it. Even if I keep, without opening the eyes, if I keep meditating, we'll never know that. So saying that you meditate and realize the self doesn't work. The pramana vyapara has to take place. And pramana being shabdatmakam, nitya praptatvat, shabda is the only means. And that being a case, you need a teacher who knows how to handle the pramana. So the mind has to expose itself to a competent teacher with proper attitude of Shraddha, who teaches Shastra. And then this Akhandakara Vritti can take place. So, Chetasa Veditavyaha. It has to be known by Chetas. There is no meditative knowledge and there is no intuitive knowledge. Intuition can be true and cannot be true also. Intuition can be wrong. Even if somebody has some siddhi who can read your future and all that, it can go wrong. It's not always true except Ishvara, who doesn't require any mind. Last time I told you, the Ishvarasya Sarvagnatvam, omniscience of Ishvara is because of Mayopati. He doesn't require any agency of Antahkarana. Nobody can. He may have some siddhi here and there. As Puja Swami used to say, you can be a mighty person, but you can never become almighty. Similarly, you may know few things intuitively, but you don't know self intuitively. So intuition also is not a means of knowledge, nor meditation, sitting quiet and Atma manifesting, as Swamiji would say, it is not submarine philosophy. Like a submarine coming out of the water, Atma will come out and say, hey, I am Atma. It doesn't work that way. Okay. So there is no intuitive knowledge, much less there is meditative manifestation of the self, because self is always manifest. Swata siddha, chidrupaha, prakasha swarupaha. You cannot hide the self. The very existence of the meditator is manifestation of the self. So it is not that self will come out. Now the question comes, further Shruti says, Esha anu atma chetasa veditavyaha yasmin pranaha panchadha samviveshaha. Okay. Yasmin, in whom, panchada prana, that fivefold prana. The prana is called fivefold prana because they do fivefold work, jobs, circulation and inhalation and digestion and evacuation, etc. So they are given different names. Panchada pranaha means pancha pranaha, yasmin, into him, samviveshaha. Okay. When these pranas I have entered, or those pranas who exist in the body, means you have to know the self when you are alive. Means you have to know the self here. Panchada pranaha samviveshaha has entered into the body. They are there. In our all vernacular languages, there is a usage. When somebody dies, they say prana chale gaye. Prana has gone. So that means when the sukshma sharira is ejected out through prana, therefore figuratively said prana went away. And in that context, it is says when the prana has entered. Prana means ultimately sukshma sharira. And when the sukshma sharira enters to a gross body, that means that is a live body, conscious body. That means when you have to know in this birth, in the human birth, you have to know the self while you are alive. It is not something to be known hereafter. That means what? Moksha is right now and here. You don't expect some moksha of going somewhere else and then I will meet Bhagavan or I will realize myself and I'll be free. No. Since the self is ever free, the self is ever obtaining. It is there all the time in you, as you. And that being a case, you don't need to go somewhere. Nitya praptatvat, the whole, it is since always available. The moksha prapti is praptasya prapti. Knowing the self is moksha. So knowing the self is gaining moksha. Self is already there, obtained, nitya prapta. So moksha also is nitya prapta. So when it is said gaining moksha, it is a figurative usage, is in a sense that which is already obtained is obtained. And that which is already obtained is obtained. That is possible only when that so-called already obtained was not known. There was ignorance about it, that it is with me. Nitya praptaha api apraptavad bhati. It appeared as not there with me, even though it was with me. That in such a situation, when there is a problem of ignorance, so it is to be recognized that this is nitya praptaha by knowledge, and knowledge can take place only in the buddhi, and therefore manasa eva idam aptavyam. We have to gain through knowledge, and that knowledge is to be gained through mind. You need a mind. Okay, yasmin pranaha panchada samvivesha. The vayu, the air that is obtaining outside is air or vayu. When it enters into the body, it becomes prana. And its movement in terms of entering and getting out, inhalation and exhaustion, continues or is guided by prarabdha. As long as there is a prarabdha, this movement will take place. That what kind of movement? Prana coming in, that external vayu getting in and prana going out, merging into total vayu, which was there. So it is to be gained here. Okay. There is a wrong misconceptions that Mukta Purushaha are there floating in the sky, in the heaven, and they take rebirth again and again, which is not true. Once it is liberated, that means ahankara is destroyed, jiva is destroyed. There is no question of rebirth. Shruti is very clear. Shastras are very clearly mentioning only till prarabdha, kshaya takes place, there is a badhita ahankara. Then ahankara, like gross body merging with the gross five elements, subtle body merges with all subtle elements, and there is no new janma. Okay. Then where is that self? That it clarifies. Yasmin pranav panchada samviveshaha pranaischittam sarvamotam prajana. Along with prana, pranaischittam sarvamotam prajana. Sarvam, the whole entire thing, chittam, the mind, prajanam of the people, along with Pranahi saha. Prana means along with sense organs. Is otam pervaded. Into him, the prana means sula sharira, sukshma sharira, everything is pervaded by whom? The entire mind along with prana is woven into Atma. That means what? The woven means what? Into whom it is woven means consciousness pervades everything. As Shankaracharya ji likes, Uttam means Vyaptam. How it is pervaded? Kshiram iva snehena. Just as the ghee pervades the milk, it is in and through everything. Though you don't see it, but it is pervaded. Iva. Kashtam iva agnina. Just as the wood is pervaded by fire. So in the mind and the gross body and subtle body is pervaded. That means when you say mind is pervaded, mind is nothing but vritti pravaha. And all kinds of vrittis is mind. Idam vritti, aham vritti is mind. And knowledge is also mind. So all the three are nothing but manifestation of one consciousness. Okay? That means consciousness is aham subject. Consciousness is idam vritti, the object. And consciousness is the knowledge that takes place. In other words, it is none of them. Brahma latka kare, Brahma sadh. Latka kare, it's just playing. It is because of conditioning of mind. It is because of the upadhi called mind. Somehow the mind plays the trick. Exactly like in a dream. Mind plays the trick. Same mind creates the whole dream world of form. The world is me, and the seer or the experiencer of the world is me, and the very experience is also me. There is nothing that is separate from me, but still, apparently, there is a division of seer, seen, seeing, experiencer, experienced, and experiencing. So also here it creates that division. Entire consciousness, subject, object, exist into the consciousness. This is wonder. Therefore it is said, Ascharyavat pashyati kaschite. That is wonder. The one consciousness alone manifest as the subject, one consciousness alone manifest as the object. Okay? And if it is one, how come I don't know? It is because of ignorance. It is self-ignorance that denies me myself. The self which is pervaded everywhere, into which the whole world exists, unto whom the whole world dissolves, and from whom the whole world has come out because of the Maya Shakti. The one which is non-dual, one which is one with Ishvara, that is not recognized. One doesn't recognize the self because of the ignorance. And as Puja Swami used to say, one is born ignorant, lives ignorant, dies ignorant, and continues to be ignorant. You are born ignorant, all right, but if there is some punya, purvajanma punya, you come across a teacher, a guru who knows the Brahman, who knows the truth and who knows the methodology of communication, and you are having proper attitude towards Guru and the Shastra, you want to study the Shastra, then there is a possibility that you are born ignorant, but you don't live ignorant. And the live is both ways, L-I-V-E, live ignorant, and you L-E-A-V-E, live ignorant. There is a possibility that you don't live ignorant, you live with knowledge, wisdom, and you live forever, not to be born again. because ignorance is something which is, when once the ignorance goes, ignorance doesn't come again. It is destroyed for good. So there is no possibility of rebirth, and then you become free. How can one handle this? He says, Yasmin Vishuddhe Vivayatyesha Atma. Yasmin Vishuddhe, in which Vishuddhe, Atma, self, reveals itself. Yasmin Vishuddhe, ignorance of Atma is the fundamental problem, is a primary obstacle. Then secondary obstacle is Ragadvesha. They are called Malaha. Mala and Vikshepa are secondary obstacles, and those secondary obstacles denies me to work upon the primary obstacle. Not only denies me, but it makes me not to see the need to address. The person who is infested, whole mind is full of likes and dislikes, is always looking for solution somewhere other than himself or herself. The person is always busy in restructuring the world outside to become happy and complete. And therefore, he or she can never ever think the possibility of myself being what I am seeking. As I have mentioned earlier, the very seeker denies the sought. And seeker is so conditioned, seeker is so so strong-headed that seeks a solution outside. So therefore, there is no way the problem can be solved. Exactly like there is some tumor in the body at some part, but the fellow is having very high blood pressure and high sugar. You cannot solve that original problem. To address to that, you have to have some normal levels of sugar and blood pressure. The person need to be administered certain medicines and some injections, whereby he is within the range of operation. And then you can address. So also, relatively neutralizing Ragadvesha is important. Relatively, I need to be free from likes and dislikes. And when I'm free from likes and dislikes, then Yasmin Vishuddhi. And the Chitta is pure. Vibhavatya Atma, that Atma reveals itself. Not just by itself, yes, I'll reveal I am the Atma. No, it reveals to the one who goes to a teacher, studies the Shastra, and has a proper attitude, then the one becomes free. Yasmin Vishuddhe Vibhavati Esha Atma, that Atma is revealed. And when that Vishuddhi is not there, self cannot be revealed, even if it is taught by a competent teacher. And the classic example we have is Dhritarashtra. None other than Lord Krishna taught Gita, which was heard by him through Sanjaya and Arjuna. It made sense to Arjuna, but no sense was there out of listening to Bhagavad Gita, because Dhritarashtra had a mind which was infested with likes and dislikes, and it didn't work. We will see the next mantra in the next class. Om Purnamadav Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.